welcome to NTD China News. I'm Karen Chang. Making headlines this Monday, March 11th. China restructures its railway ministry, but what's the real motivator? Pollution scares as more than 2,000 dead pigs float down a major river. And Tibetans mark the 54th anniversary of a failed uprising. It's restructuring time for China's sprawling railway industry. It used to be under a state monopoly, but Chinese leaders announced on Sunday that this monopoly will be broken. They say this will bring competition to the industry, but is there another reason? Let's take a look.
Chinese ministries are getting a shake-up with restructuring announcements over the weekend. The main change came with the railway ministry. The massive monopoly over China's railways will now be split up into two different arms: the administrative and a commercial.
We mean to bring in competition through the reform. A more diversified investment and operation structure will instill vitality to the railway industry.
But some analysts believe there's another reason for breaking up the ministry. China's extensive high-speed rail development has left the ministry with a massive debt, more than $420 billion that it can't pay back. That's more than the GDP of Hong Kong.
Even they already force everyone paying higher railway ticket. Still, there is no way to pay back the debt because of maintenance, because of the high interest of all the debt. So there's no solution. The only solution right now is what they come up in this meeting.
During an interview on NTD's China Focus, Jason Ma said, by splitting up the railway ministry, the debt will be transferred to the public.
The government will take over the debt and then issue bond, like a sale bond, based on those debt to people, to everyone in local people. And the people will buy this bond, and then, of course, the government will later on pay you for the bond. It's literally the government use their income to pay the debt.
Wang Feng said on Sunday that under the restructuring, the administrative arm of the railway will be supervised by the Ministry of Transport. The commercial portion will be spun into a proposed China Railway Corporation. Wang said on Monday that a decision over what to do with the debt has not been made, claiming it will be left for the next step. The sprawling railway ministry was rife with corruption. Its former minister, Liu Zhijun, was ousted in 2011 for graft and is currently awaiting trial.
And you can see that entire interview with Jason Ma and Chen Zhifei on tomorrow's China Focus. The Family Planning Commission is closely linked with China's one-child policy in the minds of many people. When Chinese leaders announced the commission would be merged with the Health Department, many wondered if policies would change as a result. The answer to that came today.
Chinese advisors announced on Sunday a tentative plan to merge China's Family Planning Commission with its health ministry. Many wondered if this would mean a change in China's family planning policies, the most infamous being the one-child policy. At a press conference today, the deputy head of the State Commission Office for Public Reform said there would be no significant change.
China will not change its basic state policy on family planning. In a populous country like ours, we still face mounting resource and population pressures. So first, the national policy of family planning will not change.
He said if anything changes, the work on family planning will be strengthened. Beijing rights activist Hu Jia says he thinks the merger is strange because the two departments have mutually opposing goals.
The Ministry of Health is supposed to improve citizens' health, the medical standards in society, and the ability to prevent diseases, conduct health education, and develop new medicines and therapies. However, the Family Planning Commission is obviously taking the lives of new babies.
Cases of forced abortion and other mistreatment have enraged citizens in recent years, and many see it as abusive and bad for the economy. Hu Jia says that the reason the Family Planning Commission will not be truly reformed is because there are too many incentives for local officials. Staff at family planning units often receive compensation for preventing births and likewise are punished for failing to meet their targets.
There are at least hundreds of thousands of family planning staff in China. Their vested interests are involved. The violent family planning method and fines are a big source of government corruption.
Exorbitant fines for having more than one child has proven a lucrative way to keep the birth rates low and government coffers filled. But abuse of the system has also led to bullying and violent abortions, which in some cases end in death. The plan to merge the two departments has yet to be approved, but will be part of discussions at the National People's Congress this week.
As China's Congress and its advisory body meet this week, Tibetans rally around the 54th anniversary of the Tibetan uprising. As self-immolations against Chinese rule continue to be reported, some are urging the new Chinese leader Xi Jinping to make changes.
Sunday marked the 54th anniversary since the Tibetan uprising in Lhasa, Tibet. It failed to dispel the communist regime's presence in the Tibetan region, and the Dalai Lama was forced to flee in India. Tibetans worldwide marked the anniversary and protested China's repressive policies towards Tibet. In New York, thousands rallied in front of the United Nations. Disparate groups joined the rally in support of Tibetan rights.
This isn't just a disaster for Tibetans, but for the whole of humanity. Nothing like this has happened before. More than 100 Tibetans have given up their lives. Against the communist dictatorship regime, the whole world has to unite and work towards democratizing China.
Ahead of the anniversary, the head of Tibet's government in exile, Lobsang Sangay, dedicated the day to those who have self-immolated. The American representative of the Dalai Lama said that Tibetans weren't the only victims of communist suppression.
There are other nationalities, including Xinjiang and Mongolia, as well as people in mainland China, who have been suppressed for decades together, and their fundamental freedoms are being totally suppressed. So in that way, I think this could be an opportunity for Xi Jinping to bring about some positive changes and development inside China.
Sunday's protest happened as the Chinese regime prepares to finalize its new set of leaders. Xi Jinping will take over as the head of government. Yang Jianli says cases like Tibet are what will threaten the Chinese regime if it doesn't change.
Xi needs to realize the disastrous nature of the government's previous policies. The crimes of the Communist Party may not be on him yet, but if he drags on, they will be. When the people really unite, the regime may disappear one day. Xi needs to realize this crisis.
Since 2009, more than 100 Tibetans have self-immolated in protest of brutal Chinese policies. On Sunday, a Tibetan street vendor in India tried to do the same during an anniversary parade in Dharamsala. The boy was prevented from setting himself on fire after he drank and doses himself in gasoline. The boy is recovering at a hospital.
Now to a bizarre discovery along a major river in Shanghai. It's grabbing attention worldwide. Thousands of dead pigs floating down the river. Testing has already found traces of a pig virus as authorities try to find out where exactly the pigs came from.
A disturbing discovery along the banks of Shanghai's Huangpu River on Sunday. Dead pigs, at least 2,800 of them. That's a big worry for residents here. The Huangpu River is a major source of drinking water for locals. But they say this isn't the first time dead pigs have floated down the river.
You can see dead pigs here every day and every year, and there are even more now than those in the past few years.
On Monday, state-run Xinhua News Agency reported that traces of the pig virus, PCV, have been found in a water sample. The Global Times cited an environmental official who claimed the river's water is still safe to drink. PCV is a common disease amongst pigs, but is not known to be harmful to humans. The carcasses are believed to have come from Zhejiang province. Thousands of pigs have died there in January and February, apparently because of cramped conditions.
Our village encouraged farmers to throw the dead pigs into a safe treatment pond, but it's pretty far and not that convenient, so they put dead pigs on a bicycle and they throw them wherever it's convenient for them.
Photos of the dead pigs are circulating on Chinese internet. One lawyer challenged Shanghai's party secretary to drink water from the river in a sign of distrust of claims that the water is safe to drink. Shanghai authorities say they are trying to track exactly where the pigs came from. They're also investigating what killed the pigs in the first place.
And still ahead on NTD China news, China's inflation hits a 10-month high. Chinese police crack down on a Guangdong village in the middle of the night. And a top health expert says China's smog is scarier than SARS. And welcome back. Everyday goods are getting more expensive as China's latest inflation figures were announced over the weekend. The Consumer Price Index for February rose 3.2% from a year earlier, hitting a 10-month high. The increase is thanks to rising food prices. The food hike comes partly because of the Lunar New Year celebrations. For Chinese regulators, inflation is more than an economic indicator. It's also a major political issue. Chinese leaders want the economy to continue growing as one way to justify its monopoly over power. But while it pushes for the economy to expand, the regime needs to balance that against rising inflation, because it can be a source of social complaint. During the current two sessions political meetings, China set an annual target of 3.5% inflation rate. According to the BBC, some analysts warn that the actual rate could be much higher if regulators continue with the current trend of easing monetary policies. During his final address to the National People's Congress last week, outgoing Premier Wen Jiabao warned that inflation would be a key challenge for China's new leaders. NTD has been contacted by villagers from Shangpu village in Guangdong province. We've been reporting that a paramilitary police force has been surrounding the village for several days. It follows protests against the local party secretary for selling off farmland to developers. Now police are responding by force.
In the dead of night, thousands of armed police attacked Shangpu village in Guangdong province. Residents here have been calling for democratic elections after Li Baoyu, the local village head, illegally sold 33 hectares of land.
What can I say? Elderly people in their 70s were beaten up and are now in hospital, about 30 to 40 of them. Some of them are dying. No one is bringing justice for us. No matter who calls us, authorities tell us not to speak. 3,000 to 4,000 armed police came to beat us Shangpu villagers, but there has been no news on TV about it.
The Shangpu standoff was similar to that of Wukan, also in Guangdong province. Residents there successfully drove out communist officials in 2011, earning an election for their own leaders. But history did not repeat itself this time. The police crackdown in Shangpu follows a new budget proposed at the National People's Congress in Beijing last week. Once again, China's army of police got more funding than the military. That's $124 billion, almost $10 billion more than the People's Liberation Army. According to the Telegraph newspaper, one paramilitary policeman involved in attacking Shangpu wrote about it on his Sino Weibo microblog. "We have returned victorious, how exciting. Tossing stones, throwing flash grenades, stun grenades, tear gas. Really exciting, but very tiring too."
Men didn't dare to go out. They asked old people and women to go out, but the armed police dispatched by local authorities still beat them. Everybody here is sighing and crying at home. No one is able to go out to work.
Land grabs by local officials has become commonplace in China. The Chinese regime technically owns all the land, and local governments have relied substantially on real estate sales as a source of revenue. In Shangpu, village head Li Baoyu is now under arrest, but residents are doubtful about a promise by authorities in Zhejiang City that they will scrap the land deals Li approved.
As Chinese elites meet for political meetings in Beijing, residents of parts of Western China are grappling with sandstorms. Here's more.
Sandstorms are ravaging parts of China, sweeping through northwestern Gansu province as well as the country's southwest. In Gansu's capital, Lanzhou, pollution index soared from 442 on Saturday to 500 on Sunday. That's bad news for Lanzhou's 3.5 million residents. At that level, breathing is difficult, and most pedestrians have taken to wearing masks. And it's not just the dust flying everywhere, it's also the size of the individual particles. They're about 1/7 the width of a human hair. This kind of particulate matter falls into what the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency calls the PM10 standard. It's a measurement of the concentration of particles 10 micrometers in size in the air. According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, exposure can cause cancer and death. Here in Lanzhou, the reading of these large particles was 12 times higher than normal. In southwestern Sichuan province, the capital Chengdu has been hit by the heaviest sandstorm since the start of this year. Air pollution index was around 400 on Monday, with the air turning to a yellow hue. Sandstorms have become a serious problem over the last decade in China. Respiratory diseases, including cancer, are on the rise due to the amount of industrial pollutants carried in the dust.
Environmental group Greenpeace reported last year that air pollution causes thousands of premature deaths in major Chinese cities. Now, a leading Chinese health expert has issued a serious warning that as the government pushes for economic growth, it's leaving a deadly toll on the public.
The sandstorms and recent air pollution to hit China's eastern cities is raising health concerns. So much so that a leading health expert has warned that the country's smog problem is, quote, scarier than SARS. That's the respiratory virus that killed at least 750 people 10 years ago. Speaking at the National People's Congress last week, the president of the China Medical Association, Dr. Zhong Nanshan, issued the dire warning. He said, unlike SARS, there's no quarantine from harmful particles in smog. Citing a report by the World Health Organization, Zhong said even the city with the cleanest air in China ranks in the bottom 20% worldwide. Currently, China's lung cancer rate is the highest in the world. Zhong says if pollution continues unchecked, the number of patients could increase exponentially. Last September, conservation group Greenpeace reported that more than 8,500 people died prematurely in 4 major Chinese cities in 2012 from the harmful air pollutant PM2.5. Zhong blamed the Chinese regime's pursuit of GDP for the air pollution. He suggested that local authorities should be evaluated not just on economic growth, but also on how well they can reduce smog.
And that's all we have time for this NTD China news. For more of our China-related topics, visit our website at ntd.tv or subscribe to our YouTube channel, NTD on China. Coming up next is China Focus, where Shelley Zhang speaks with Jason Ma and Chen Zhifei about the death of Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez. Stay tuned.